All right. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us in the world today. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to watch us, join us, and learning a little bit more about sessions, which is going to be our topic of discussion for today. Joining me today is one of our wonderful colleagues and also the founder, it's her baby of sessions, I like to say, is Rachel. So,
Hello,
Rachel, how you been doing?
I'm fine. Thanks, Kelvin. And thanks for having me back. It makes me feel like maybe I'm a welcome guest more often now. I've done a decent job so far promoting this tool, and I'm really glad to be back to talk about it again. Though every time you call it my baby, I feel like my actual baby somewhere is like, wait a minute, mom, you know. But technically, Sessions predates that baby, so I don't know. Jury's out. I think
There you go. A
us into
big brother,
questions
little
later.
brother situation, right?
Yeah. Hope everyone is doing well out there. By the way, it's this lovely spring day here in North Texas. How's it over by you?
It is a lovely spring day here in Central Florida as well. The sun is shining. It's a little hard to tell when I have my light out, but that's one of the joys of having a big tree by my windows. When the sun's in just that right spot, it's going to be blocked the entire time.
Hmm.
So, no complaints on that front. The weather's been nice, a lot of rain, which is to be expected this time of year,
Yeah.
which is making way for humidity that we'll be having pretty much starting next month. It's just
Inevitably. Yep. Yep.
lovely.
I'm a former Floridian. I know it all too well.
Exactly. So, um, as I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about sessions today, but in relation to reflections that you might have been part of within the classroom yourself or within your district, and again, what that looks like. So that's going to kind of tie into our very first question for today, which is going to be, what does meaningful reflection look like to you? Okay. So again, former classroom teacher, former like coach, administrator, and everything. I've kind of seen the different gambits. We all have to reflect.
Hmm.
But I always like to refer back to my classroom days because I think that was where it was truly beneficial. And not to say it's not beneficial at other levels, but it really was. I found it more impactful to reflect, but unfortunately, also didn't have as much time to reflect as I would have liked, which is kind of one of those double-edged swords there. But I know for me personally, it was one of those things that I did usually sometimes during the course of a lesson, like, oh, this isn't working well. I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I remember to not do this next time I do this lesson. And if I had time, maybe make a little bit note as well.
Hmm.
But typically it would be at the end of the school day when I would actually, reflect on that lesson. And if I had time, just to write it down. That was kind of the really big key, was just finding the time to do it
Hmm.
and remembering what it was that you either liked or didn't like about that particular lesson when you were reflecting on it. Because again, usually it would have happened hours earlier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that I remember and know that's probably a struggle with a lot of you out there as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Rachel, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm kind of impressed that you were able to recollect something from earlier in the day because that to me, it was, like everything faded and went red. Like I almost didn't see anything. And like I didn't even think about it until maybe a week later. And then I was like, oh, why did I say that to period one? I totally forgot. So I wasn't even that good to think on a day-to-day basis. But I think that's where video really comes in handy when you can record it because I personally wasn't paying attention. For me as a new teacher, when I first started, I was just trying to get through everything and actually hit all my targets and hit all my talking points, like make sure that I actually completed the lesson. So while I did start to get more reflective, even just toward the end of my first year and going into my second year, video would have really saved me. So when I think about what does meaningful reflection look like, it's when you are kind of just taking away all of the unnecessary aspects of your lesson that you don't really need to pay attention to in that moment. And what I mean are like surface level observations that are kind of insignificant. You know, the first thing that I would always look at when I started reflecting over video was like what my hair looked like, what I was wearing, things like that. So meaningful reflection then is, kind of ignoring those things or just, pretending like my hair wasn't a complete mess that day, and start thinking more deeply around what am I vulnerable about that day. First of all, if I could recall what was going on in my head that day, like what led me to start off with that particular like personal story as an intro to my lesson, like what was I feeling that day. And if I can kind of think about that, then it sort of provides the justification or explanation for how I perform throughout the rest of that lesson. And I can, give myself a break if I'm otherwise being too hard on myself, which I tended to be all the time. I can also rationalize why I made certain decisions that I wouldn't have otherwise made. I also pay attention to my students, and that's really important part of being meaningfully reflective. Like, how are my students that day? What were their how was their emotional well-being? What kind of mind state were they in? Was it a tough day because they had just gotten out of testing? Was it a fun day because there was going to be a pep rally that afternoon? Like, all these things I can start thinking about more deeply, and it helps me understand like the causes or reactions that I was witnessing in class that day. So that's what deep, like meaningful reflection looks like to me.
Excellent. And I love the way that you broke that down too, because oftentimes I would say maybe from more of from an outsider's perspective, not necessarily aware of all those little things that would go into it, especially dealing with the students. I know we've all out there, right, had those days where we just knew it's like, oh, nope, this is going to be one of those days because the students there not having anything,
Yeah.
nothing's going, no. All right, so we're just going to blow this off and try to get as much done as we can, but no, we were going to have to revisit this tomorrow.
And that's okay. You know, part of also being reflective is forgiving yourself when things just go completely awry,
Yes.
right? Because you know that you have a chance to do it again. Like your students will forgive you, and they hopefully will be more receptive the next time around. It's okay if it takes two or three uh, lessons to complete it, but that's all right.
Oh, yes. When I was in middle school teaching, I was very fond of telling my first period class that you all are going to be my guinea pigs because this one I'm
Absolutely.
not quite sure. I want to try something here and see how it goes. And if it went well, it's like, oh, excellent. Okay, I'm doing that for the rest of the day. If not, it's like, well, I tried. So we'll work on you all tomorrow. But for the rest of the day, not doing that again because, wow.
But what's interesting about that, Kelvin? So when again, going back to why we record often, why we record all the time. So you can apply that methodology to something that worked out really well with period one. But if you for me, when I was being really reflective about what went wrong in period five or period seven, even though I again applied the same exact strategy, went through it the same way, even like inserted that same corny joke that I did with first period and it didn't work with fifth period. When I'm being really reflective, and I'm paying more attention to what's going on with my students in particular, it can help define why it went wrong or like why it didn't work. Like it helps me, then retool it. Like now I know next time that corny joke didn't work on period five because someone was actually sensitive to the content of the joke. Like, and now I know that because I'm being reflective. I'm actually thinking like it's not a one size fits all thing. Though I don't blame you. It's like definitely a strong methodology to apply. Something goes well, like why try to reinvent the wheel? Just, don't try to break it. Just keep going. But sometimes, being a little bit more reflective helps you realize those small, really just like calculated changes that you can make that make a difference with particular sets of students.
Yes, exactly, because you just never know sometimes.
Yeah.
Everyone might react the same way, but they all are individuals as well. We realize they have different learning styles.
Yeah.
So the way that they're taking in that material as you're going, it might be a little bit different. So, but again, having that the video to go back on, I really do like that, because as you pointed out, it's going to help reinforce what was going on in that moment. So you're not having to really dig back in your brain like, I think that might have been, was that the day we had the assembly, or was so and so, I think they might have been absent, so that's probably why they're having this issue. I'm like, but being able to look back at the video, like, especially too, if you recorded something for your observation as well, so because you know how that usually goes. You have your observation, then you're probably going to have your debrief, probably within a week if you're lucky. And then it's like, okay, geez, I've done so many lessons since then. What was this one about again? I forget. I'll be perfectly honest with you. So you can look back and do that. So
Yeah.
we've been talking about, what does that meaningful reflection look like? And we've alluded to video. So let's go ahead and talk about how we would go about doing that video with sessions. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. You want to share your screen here. Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay. Huh.
No good.
Reason. Okay. It is not letting me share my screen. Technical difficulties on live TV, ladies and
I can
gentlemen. You
maybe share
gotta
my
love
screen if I have your slide deck open, which I think I do. We are starting at slide 6, right?
that. Yes.
Let's see what it tells me when I try to share my screen. Oh, no, it's telling me I have to update my system permit, so some sort of technical glitch.
Okay, so we apologize for that, ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen.
we
But
can
we will
describe it.
definitely,
It's
yeah,
not that complex. It's like a 3-step process, really, before, especially for reflections, because you're not even incorporating that sharing piece into it. So we can just talk about it, which is fine.
yes.
So
And we'll
we'll
definitely
do our
drop
best.
the video into this
Yes.
video as well, that talks about that, as so you have the visuals to go along with what we're discussing. But go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
Basically, we're describing a process that happens in our software. So you've already recorded a video, or maybe you're about to record a video. And the video can get recorded in a multitude of ways. If you're a Swivl user already, you're probably already familiar with our robot, but you don't have to use our robot. You can just use our app. When you upload that video to our platform, you have a couple of options for what you want to do with it. You can keep it in just the regular mode that it's in, and you can leave comments on the side of the video, and these are all timestamps of the video. But we often recommend that you switch it into what we call our sessions mode, and this just changes the visual appearance of the flow of walking through your video. So instead of seeing your video as the first screen, we actually ask you to enter what's called an intention. And the intention really is the definition of what you're looking for in the video that day. It's got to be something really specific and really tangible to be useful for you when you are ready to start leaving the comments on the video. So I'll answer this question. So how can sessions enhance your reflection process? Well, for one, we ask you to be really intentional. As I mentioned earlier, if I just avoided focusing on my surface level observations, the hair, the outfit, the otherwise just a physical appearance of Rachel that day. And I really set up my intention to be, well, I wanted to understand specifically how this question how the types of responses that were elicited by this question. And I could list in the intention field my question. Like, this is the type of question that I asked that day, and then I could understand how students responded to it. So then what I would do is I would go to that next step, which I would see the video, I'd start playing the video, start leaving comments, and then I could observe my students answering that question, right? And then I'm going to be jotting down notes, annotating what they said, how I responded to them, are just really analyze the dialogue back and forth, all with that intention in mind. So that, like, I'm not paying attention to other things in the video, because frankly, for this particular reflection, it's not important. Okay. I cannot build Rome in a day, and we know no one can, right? Let's just focus on really small, achievable, miniature goals, which we call intentions, in just this video. We can always go back to this video, duplicate it, make another video out of it, choose a different intention if we wanted to look for something else, right? But we're enhancing your reflection process because we're keeping it really targeted and really specific, and hopefully help you stay focused. And then once you're done leaving comments on the video, you would move on to the third step in the process, which is a summary step. And when you're doing a reflection, I would say, keep this pretty informal. You don't have to go into significant details about next steps. I actually think that the summary step is a much more useful tool when you take this video into a coaching conversation with other people, because then you give the other person an opportunity to respond to you with their own summary, and you can outline next steps and action items. But for reflection, just keep it short and sweet. What is the one thing that you learned? And very, very frankly, did you achieve your intention in this video? If not, that's okay. But you should probably jot that down in the summary. Like, I kind of missed the mark, so next time I will do this instead. And so you've got, like I said, these three areas. That first step, you're setting your intention. The second step is analyzing the video and with the intention in mind. And the third step is, did I meet my intention or not? And what can I do next time? Just a simple one line. This is what I'm going to do instead.
Excellent. Very well said, Rachel. Now, something that
I know we know what it looks like. Yeah. Hopefully it makes sense when you see it. When you see the video, it'll make sense what I'm talking about, this 3-step process.
Yes. And I just wanted to point out too that exactly how Rachel described it, and you may be thinking, well, that seems kind of simple. It really is. It's not overly complicated at all to go through those 3 steps. Mm-hmm. It's, again, setting your intention. What's the reason behind this particular video? What are you going to be looking for? Next, your feedback. So you're going to be looking at those glows and grows, those positive takeaways, those things that it's like, okay, I'm still need to work on this a little bit more, and I'm not quite there yet. And then third, you're going to put that into a summary for you to look at later.
Yeah. Oh, good. We've got somewhat of a visual here. It's going to get bigger. Okay. Thank you, Vince.
Yes.
In very archaic territory today. No internet. I don't even know how you're doing this, Vince, but thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's kind of small, but hopefully it's a little bit more clear for people out there. So the screenshot at the bottom is the third step in the process. And like I said, we give you enough room here to leave an entire paragraph, but for a reflection, something that's really just personal to you, I don't necessarily recommend you writing an entire paragraph. That can get really laborious, and you might not be enticed to do reflections as often if you have to write kind of a long paragraph. Save that for that more formal conversation with your coach.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And so a question that we often get asked when we're going over this, and I would love to get your answer on this. I already know, but just for the audience out there who might not fully have grasped this and trying to wonder, okay, next steps. How often do you recommend that they record a video looking for or working on that particular intention that they are focusing on?
That's a really hard thing to answer because it's so personal, isn't it? Right?
Mhm.
It really depends on you and like your own metrics of success, right? Like I could record till I'm blue in the face, if I'm being honest. Like I could record the same lesson every day for a week because I really want to analyze it. But I that's taking it kind of seriously. I would still say, though, from a comfort perspective, recording more often, even if you're not necessarily looking for the same things every time, is always your best bet. And I know it sounds kind of biased for me to say that. Of course, I want you to record more often, but it really will help you feel more. Natural when you record. Like it takes a few times recording yourself to actually start performing as naturally and organically as you always do because you're in the back of your mind, yeah, you're thinking about a video somewhere in that classroom, right? So then that takes a little while for people to get over. So, yeah, the short answer is it depends, but for being a really reflective person, you have to watch, you have to listen all the time. And if you make it a regular part of your practice, you are going to start noticing things that you wouldn't have otherwise noticed, even when you're not recording.
Exactly. And I love how you said that in the beginning is, well, it's going to kind of it's going to depend on, well, what are you doing, that individual, what they're looking for. So it's not necessarily, hey, you need to record a video every day. However, you also want to make sure, especially if it's something you're not used to, you, you probably want to do it more often in the beginning to get that comfort level out, up out of the way there. And kind of like how you also said too, that you're not going to necessarily be focusing on more of, oh, that's what I look like. Oh my goodness, I need to make sure I bring a brush next time. Or is that really what my voice sounds like?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't often
That's not
say
what it sounds like in my head, right?
yeah.
So
I don't often say things like this, but I would prioritize quantity over quality, at least at the beginning, because the more clips that you have, just the more evidence you have, right? And so it never has to be perfect. And if you spend all that time just trying to get the perfect recording, like you're not going to get it. But if you have a lot of material to work with, you can start to pay attention to things. You start to recognize repetitions. You start to recognize tendencies more. And again, we cannot stress it enough. If you find any discomfort with using video, your best bet is to just use it more and and just keep on facing your fear. That's the only way to get comfortable with something, right?
I always love equating this back to examples of, from growing up or even right now with some people. For example, learning to ride a bike. It wasn't one of those things like, oh, okay, I did it once and maybe had that accident. It was like, oh, I'm done. Never riding a bike again, right? It's like, well, no, you practice, get a little bit better, feel a little bit more confident. And before you know it, your mom, dad, or whoever's helping you out there is not behind you anymore, and you look back like, wait, where'd you go? Oh,
Yeah.
you're like, you've
You're
been
like, I'm
doing this
doing
for
it.
a while.
I'm actually doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
so
personally love the example of Kevin from Home Alone when
uh,
he's like, "I'm not afraid anymore. You hear me?" And I think about that all the time when it comes to that discomfort with seeing yourself on video. Like, you know what? I'm not afraid of it anymore. I'm going to pay attention to something that actually matters, so I can work on this and just stop paying attention to things that don't matter. It's all in your head. It really
yeah,
is.
I completely agree with that because again, it's just one of those things where if you get in your own head, you're going to be overthinking it, maybe overanalyzing it, or just, you know, yeah, freaking yourself out to where you don't want to do anything. You're going to kind of shut down.
Hmm.
But
Yes.
if you just come from this standpoint of, especially with talking about relating it to sessions as well, I'm essentially doing reflections or want to have meaning reflections anyway. This is just going to help me to be more purposeful, you know,
and organized.
or more intentional, pun not intended there,
Yeah.
as well as, what it's not just enhancing what I'm already doing, because I have to reflect. There's no getting around that, but it's going to help to save time and sort of take it to that next level, because video is such a powerful tool, and that's
Hmm.
something that we all know,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So before we move on with our closing here, are there any final thoughts that you like to share? Anything to keep in mind,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Rachel?
If you don't mind, I just want to stress that, reflection is a very personal experience. Like you have it in the title of our webinar today, personal reflections. I, always think of them, as a synonymous phrase in a way. Like this is about you analyzing and assessing yourself, and you don't need to feel burdened or pressured by other people. So, you know, the whole point of using video is to see things that you wouldn't otherwise see. We don't want you to be afraid of video. And especially when you're using our platform, you never have to share your video with anyone. You can keep it completely private, and then you retain that personal experience over it. So it's really about you and your own growth and what you strive to achieve. I think, as Kelvin has mentioned, it can be very powerful and enlightening. And I just hope that that gives you more satisfaction around the idea of using video for other applications in the classroom, because this is a very exciting way to just make it part of your regular routine, where you really derive benefits from using it. So it's not for anyone else; it's for you.
Exactly. So again, I just like to echo that. Hey, like you, I'm sure tell your students out there, or you tell your teachers if you're a coach, administrator as well. You start off small, kind of scaffolded, okay, and build upon that. So we're basically laying the foundation, and you're just going to be adding on top of that each and every time that you, of course, do that video, until it's just going to become an old hat at this time. It's like, oh, I know how to do that. No problem. And you're even going to be comfortable enough to help other people and show them how to do it as well. So just all you have to do is take that first step. We are providing you the tools and the resources,
Mhm.
and you can take it from there.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up now, do some our wonderful housekeeping things here. If you do have any other questions, or you just need more help with our Swivl products, please visit us at swivl.com/setup. You can also join us on our weekly Q&A sessions at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you can come and ask us any and everything about Swivl. So if you like, how do I turn that robot on again? Or I saw the thing about sessions and I was really wanting to know more information about that. That's a good place to come to get that information as well. Just register at swivl.com/events. Um, Also, if you would like, please to do your part and support the people of Ukraine. Hashtag stand with Ukraine at Swivl. Again, if you are able to show your support and donate, we greatly, I'm sure they would greatly appreciate that as well. You can also follow us on Instagram at Swivl, like at go. I'm sorry, people out there in the social media world. I'm still getting used to this. Even if I'm reading out there, I'm like, it just doesn't make sense in my brain. I don't know. My boys say I'm old, so I still think Facebook is popular, but apparently no, it's not.
No, only for old people now, apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even when I was still in the classroom, my students were telling me that. I was
Well,
like, "What are you talking about? Everybody that I know is on
I think
Facebook."
Instagram is even for old people now too, because
I've been hearing that as well, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I
my,
still don't understand Instagram." So,
my former students are telling me I need to get off Instagram because I'm showing my age. I'm like, okay,
oh,
thanks.
oh, geez. And I'm like that. I guess it's not good. And I would imagine. I know you're not doing anything crazy on Instagram. That's the one with videos, right? Like short little 10-second videos or something?
Pictures mostly, video. Yeah. Oh boy, you got a
Oh,
long way.
you can follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/Swivl. Just hit that subscribe button and also hit the bell to be notified when we are doing any videos, have them upload, or when we go live. And we will be taking a short week break, so we will not be here next week, but our next one is going to be on April 6th, where we're going to be talking about student engagement. So I hope you have a wonderful week off. I know some of you are still going either on spring break, going on spring break, or we'll be starting your spring break soon. So that's kind of where we've settled in on that. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Take care now.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everybody.